Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm SmurfSlaps and I'm your guy for all things 40k related, whether that be lore reviews, brand new models, or book reviews. Today I thought I'd rank the infantry models of the 7 most popular factions in all of Warhammer 40k, comparing them both in terms of overall strength, points and hit scoring, melee combat, ranged shooting, and in some cases, their actual lore-abiding strengths. Join me as we go through the list, guys. Let me know in the comments below if you agree, like the video, and subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content. Let's jump into it. Now, the first set of infantry that we're going to be ranking are the Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes. These guys are the gold standard for all infantry within the Imperium. You want a world conquering? They are the best you can send. You need a demon incursion dealing with? They are your guys. They're not the first on the world, and they're not the most numerous. They are the biggest and strongest that the Imperium has to offer. Whilst they're not the most numerous, they are definitely the first choice when a world needs to be dealt with quickly and efficiently. The Imperial Guard may be up there for the Imperium's war machine, but these guys are the ones who make the real difference in the battlefield. These warriors are genetically enhanced beyond all limits of a normal human being. They're genetically modified, they wear suits of armor, and they carry and use weapons that are twice the size normal humans would be capable of using. They can also survive in harsher environments than most ordinary human beings, which makes them perfect for throwing them into various different roles without excessive training or adaptability to the environment. So they are basically the Swiss Army knives of infantry for the Imperium. However, they're very, very high in points cost on the tabletop, which means you get very few units when compared to other infantry units from other factions. In the lore and the tabletop, the Space Marines value quality over quantity. They can hold an objective or punch through an enemy line with a small squad, but they can't be everywhere all at once, which means you need several squads to be able to hold several objectives, unlike in other factions where you can use a single squad to split across multiple objectives. Next up, we have the Astra Militarum, or the Imperial Guard. Now, where the Space Marines rely on training, force, holy interventions, and overall brutishness and genetic modifications, the Imperial Guard don't. The Imperial Guard are the basic foot soldiers of the Imperium. Their lives are measured in minutes or hours, not years or centuries like the Space Marines. They're given flak armor, las guns, and basic infantry training, pointed in a direction and told to shoot at the enemy. That's it. Now, whilst they do have various different forms and specialties, the Imperial Guard are kind of seen as the pawns of the Imperium's army. They get sent forward to be killed and as cannon fodder, where other units are more specialized and cost more. Basically, they are a cost-saving exercise. For every 1,000 Guardsmen you put on the field, you might field 1 or 2 Adeptus Astartes. So that's the difference in terms of those two factions. Now, on the tabletop, the Imperial Guard are incredibly cheap in terms of points costs, and therefore you get numerous units within a squad. When compared with the Space Marines, you get twice as many Imperial Guardsmen for every Space Marine. They've also got fantastic synergy with officers and with artillery, and they're usually backed up and supported by some very big guns, rather than carrying the big guns themselves. Because of their large numbers, they also have fantastic objective control. As I said before, a single squad of Astartes might only hold a single objective, whereas one squad of Guardsmen can be split up to cover multiple different objectives. That's a massive benefit when it comes to command and conquer. Now, as I said before, they're not as well trained as your Adeptus Astartes. They are significantly more fragile. They're not genetically modified. They don't have the armament or armor to keep them alive as long as an Astartes does. They also suffer from low morale without leadership, which means you need commissars in there to train, direct, and in some cases discipline the infantry units in order to make them a fully functioning force. Imperial Guardsmen don't win wars by surviving the war. They win by outlasting. If you throw enough bodies at the problem, it will eventually go away, and that's the philosophy of the Imperial Guard. Mass numbers of casualties for the most return of land. Next up, we've got the Chaos Space Marines. Now, these guys are very similar to their Adeptus Astartes cousins, but they've traded loyalty and discipline for brutality and Chaos Warp Taint. Their weapons and armament are significantly older than their cousins, and their formations are not as rigid, nor is their structure of leadership, but they fight ferociously, and they fight with some brutally insane tactics on the battlefield. Now, these guys have got some really strong melee and ranged potential, especially when they've got buffs from the Dark Gods. Think about the Iron Warriors and the Emperor's Children. One is the perfection of siege warfare, the other is the perfection of melee combat. Both groups are massively buffed by their chaos supporting gods. These guys are also incredibly dangerous and durable. Take the Death Guard for example. They can survive poxes, plagues, mortal wounds, and keep lumbering forwards in the battlefield. They are incredible forces of evil. Now, some downsides are that they don't have the same consistency of leadership as their loyalist cousins. They also don't have the defensive capabilities that their loyalist cousins have, and their technology hasn't kept up with the Adeptus Astartes over the millennia that they've been in the war. Whilst they have the Dark Mechanicum on their side with the Chaos Gods to infuse their technology with Chaos Taint, it's not the same as the Imperium's ability to manufacture brand new weapons and technologies that make them more durable and more likely to be an aggressive killer. Next up, we have the Orks. Now, if the Imperium fights with discipline, the Orks fight with enthusiasm. These guys, at their very basics, are around about 8 feet tall. So they're about the same size as an Astartes, significantly bigger than an Imperial Guardsman. They are far more durable. They don't require watering and feeding. They're far more aggressive, and they come in mass numbers. They spawn on planets in spores, and unless you burn the planet, they keep coming back again and again and again. Now, these guys are incredibly tough and are fantastic at melee warfare, because a bullet to the arm doesn't really do much for them. They also come in massive numbers. Their squads are huge, and on the tabletop, that's a real advantage, because you'll overwhelm your enemy before they even wipe half the squad out. Then you've got the War. They have incredible momentum when they're charging. They run through your units like a hot knife through butter, and they won't even notice what they're doing. Now, on the downside, they're not the best of shots. As long as they have bullets in the gun, they'll fire them. Just doesn't matter where or when it hits. They're also very vulnerable to morale-boosted units, so Imperial Guardsmen with a strong commissar can actually impact them quite significantly. They are also vulnerable to ranged fire. They'll just run headlong into gunfire without thinking about it. So armies like the Tau are actually quite good at facing up against the Orks. Now, as I said, the Orks excel at melee combat. If they get in close and the green tide hits your army, you're done for. They are fantastic in close quarters. Next up, guys, we've got the Tyranids, and they come with units like the Termagants and the Hormagaunts. Individually weak units, but as a collective, they are an overwhelming swarm. As well as being cheap and fast, they're also instantly replaceable. Once one swarm hits you, if you kill it, the next wave just hits you even harder. They're individually weak, but they exist to distract, consume, and overwhelm the enemy. One of the biggest benefits is that they come in incredible numbers, so they overwhelm all of your units. They're great because they come with incredible numbers, they've got fantastic board control, and they're really, really quick, and they have a brilliant synergy with hive mind units around them. So they will always work very well as long as there is a more commanding unit nearby. They are extremely fragile as individual units, and if you get large artillery or bombardments on them, you can wipe out whole units very quickly. They're also susceptible to their synapses to the hive mind being broken. So if a larger unit is killed, don't expect them to retain the same amount of control that they had when that hive mind was alive. Similar to the Imperial Guards, the Tyranid goal isn't simply to win the fight. It is to swarm and overwhelm and consume the enemy, and they do that fantastically well. Next up, we've got Necron Warriors. Now, these guys are slow, relentless, and notoriously difficult to kill. Now, they're armed with gauze weapons that strip matter atom by atom, so even the merest of touches from their infantry's weapons can render a mobile unit dead. They also continue to advance the fight long after they've been destroyed thanks to their reanimation protocols. So as a base unit, they are extremely OP on the battlefield. They come with incredible durability, brilliant objective holding, and their firepower is insane for an infantry unit. However, Necron Warriors are slower when it comes to their movement, and they're also less capable when it comes to melee combat as well. So they will be susceptible to close-range attacks from larger units. Necrons really just win through a battle of attrition. You kill them once, they reanimate, they get back up and come back against you. It's really difficult to deal with them, and on the tabletop, they're exceedingly difficult to play against, especially if they've got bigger units behind them, like Skorpek destroyers. Finally, we've got the Tau Fire Warriors. Now, these guys are lightly armoured, but their pulse rifles outrank most other military units in the 40k universe. Now, these guys have exceptional firepower and range and brilliant synergy with their drone counterparts. They've also got exceptional movement and combat ability, which means that if you want to get in and kill them, you have to do so at close range. They've got fantastic overwatch. They are a very difficult group of warriors to fight against, and for basic infantry, they're some of the best in the universe. However, they are very weak when it comes to melee combat, and they require very precise positioning. If one unit gets in close with them, they can wipe out a squad very, very quickly. Essentially, if one unit gets to within the Tau lose the battle, but the Tau tend to make sure you don't get close to them in order to prevent any losses. So how do all of these compare? Well, the best all-rounders have to be the Space Marines. Yes, they cost a bit more in terms of points, but they are some of the strongest units on the board whilst wielding some of the best technology and weapons that they can possibly get. In terms of board control, it's the Imperial Guard and the Tyranids. Sheer numbers alone will allow you to overwhelm and control multiple objectives at a lower cost than other armies. In terms of melee combat, it's between your Orks and your Chaos Space Marines, depending on which legion you get. But the Orks are definitely up there in terms of their ability to just flank, swarm, and crucify opponents with their melee combat ability. In terms of durability, that has to go to the Necrons. Those are some of the best infantry units around, and when you consider that their base units can reanimate themselves, that makes them very, very difficult to play against, especially on the tabletop. A few lucky rolls of the die, and when you thought you were in a winning position, all of a sudden you can be facing a full-on horde again. And in terms of shooting, that's got to go to the Tau. If you're playing a ranged game, the Tau will crucify you before you even get close. But this is where it depends on the army and the faction you're playing. If you're playing in a game where you're wanting to keep the enemy at bay for the longest, that would be the Tau that you'd need to pick as your army. If you want the best all-rounders and you want to play a bit of melee and a bit of ranged combat, why not go for some Space Marines? But realistically, I think there can only be one winner. The strongest overall infantry has to be the Necrons, because they will kill you at long range, they'll kill you at close range, and they'll keep coming back even after you've destroyed their units. If you enjoyed this breakdown, guys, leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and comment down below which infantry units do you think dominate the battlefield.